Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the books I read in November, and I am excited to share them with you. I can't believe it's December already. That's just so crazy to me. So if you are new to my channel, I created this channel as a homeschooling resource to give you different curriculum ideas, organizational ideas, and ways to invite Christ into your homeschool space. So if you're interested in those things, please hit that subscribe button and let's talk about these books. All right, so I wanted to start off by mentioning that I have book reviews for all the books I'm gonna go through today. I don't have them for anything on my Kindle. I don't do reviews for all those romance novels. That would be a little bit interesting anyways. But I have reviews for all the books I'm gonna talk about today. And so I'll have a blog post down below in the description. And if you click on that, you can go and look at all the books and the reviews that I have for them. Some of the things I will talk about here, I have my laptop right here with the reviews. And so I might share some of the same information. If you go and read them, it might be very similar, but I might have additional insights here that are not there and vice versa. So just a reminder, I always forget to remind you, but those will be linked down below if you want to check them out. So I spent the first half of the month basically on my Kindle, which is kind of what happened last month. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy reading a lot. I enjoy reading romance, and so I had a lot of fun reading from the Kindle. So I'll link a few of the books that I enjoyed down below because I'm not gonna talk about them because they're just fluff stuff that aren't as important as some of these other books I read. So the first book I wanted to mention is Simplicity Parenting. And this book took me a while to read, actually. I started it several months ago and with the intent every single month of this is gonna be the month that I finish this book. And then it just never happened. The big reason is because the letters, the words, like it's so small. And I know some people really like smaller lettering, some people like bigger lettering. I feel like this small of lettering kind of psychs me out. Like it becomes a psychological thing because I'll read for an hour and feel like I made no progress whatsoever. And so then I'm like, ugh, I don't want to read this book. Even though the content of this book is amazing. I love the content. It just took a while. So at the beginning of this month, I wasn't very far into this book, but I was determined to have this be the month I finished the book. And so I did. I finished it and I really loved it. I thought there were so many great insights. And so it talks about simplifying our lives, you know, for our children specifically, but it also involves us if we're simplifying for them. And one of my favorite things about this book is that the author starts out by talking about physical fevers and soul fevers and how they're very similar. So I want you to think about a physical fever, first of all, like any sort of sickness. When your kid gets sick, what do? You simplify your life, right? You don't keep making them go 100 miles an hour, maybe sometimes, or maybe you have a kid that wants to keep going. I was sort of that kid. But you simplify, you slow down, you counsel things, you know, you make them lay on the couch. You give them simpler foods even, and you're usually in simpler clothes. You know, you're in your sweats, hopefully, or pajamas, trying to be comfortable and, you know, even though you feel lousy, just feel as best you can in your comfy clothes. And so everything gets simplified when your child gets sick. And the same, he talks about these soul fevers, which is something that's a little bit harder to pinpoint. You know, a child having a fever, the flu, or something like that is somewhat obvious when it happens and you can say, oh, these are the symptoms for this. Soul fever is a little bit harder to like pinpoint exactly what the symptoms are because it can look different depending on the child, but basically they're overwhelmed or overstimulated in their environment. So this might take the form of maybe they're acting out more, maybe they're not doing well in school, you know, maybe they're just not getting enough sleep in general, which could lead to a lot of problems, like so many problems. A lot of ADHD type symptoms are because of sleep deprivation. They're very similar in their symptoms. So all these types of symptoms, the author of this book of Simplicity Parenting has called soul fever. This is kids that have a soul fever. And what do you need to do? The same thing that you would do if they had an actual physical fever. You need to simplify their life. That might be simplifying their toys. You know, the mess in their room, there just might be too much stuff. It becomes overstimulating to them and they can't focus on one thing because there's just too many things in their field of vision. It might be in their schedule you need to simplify. They're just overwhelmed with everything that's going on. They can't keep up. Maybe they don't even like some of the stuff that they're doing. And so it's causing them to respond in negative ways at home or even at school. And so that's what he starts out talking about. And I just really love the idea. I feel like it just created this very vivid picture in my head of what is actually going on with some of our children and why we need to simplify our lives. So then he goes on in this book to give us ideas of how, which is what I love. I love books that kind of give me ideas of what I need to do. He goes through toys, how to simplify your toys, your schedules, even clothing. Like, kids don't need crazy expensive clothes or like elaborate looking clothes, you know, super fancy, I guess. Just having something simple they can choose from every single day, you know, just enough for maybe just over a week. And just simple things, because they get overwhelmed if they have too many choices and it's just complicated for them. It's easier when it's simple. So clothes is one, and then even food, which I had never even thought about simplifying food. He talks about it in respect to a lot of foods, like junk foods nowadays, or preservative type foods have so much flavoring added to them that kids won't eat whole foods, like healthier foods, like apples and vegetables and, you know, grains and other fruits and all that kind of stuff, because they're used to this like massive flavor that comes from like Doritos. Not saying you can't occasionally have Doritos, because they're good, you know, but if that's all they're eating all the time, their body is overwhelmed. It's overstimulated because these flavors, and they don't want anything else because it's just, they want stuff that has a lot of flavor to it and is very, very salty. So anyways, those were just some of the things that he mentions in here, and he gives lots of examples of people he's helped, of different situations, which helps me as well better understand it. I feel like when there's personal experiences from other people, I start to understand the concept a little bit better. So I really love that. He also talks about media and how he thinks we should simplify media use. I can't even remember the age range he was saying. It might have been like 7 or even 10 years old and younger to have like no exposure to TV basically whatsoever. And, you know, some people are like, what? But I love his idea. We don't have a TV, and he suggests not having TVs in here in this book. And we haven't had one for our whole marriage. We've just never had a TV, and I'll tell you why in a second. I've mentioned it in another video before. But so I really love that idea of just like cutting out media. My kids still do watch some stuff. That's what they're doing right now while I'm filming this video because my husband is teaching class, and so they need to do something so they're not interrupting me all the time. And so they're down watching on the tablet, but we don't have a TV. We do have a projector that we don't even use once a week to watch a movie maybe together, or just me and my husband on a Friday night or something. But he talks about if you can't get rid of your TV, you know, if it's very, very important to you, or like football and all that kind of stuff, to move it someplace that's less prominent in your house. So you shouldn't be coming into your house and the focal point is the TV, because that just causes a whole slew of problems. And then that's the focus of your home, is on media and on TV. And that's what your kids will be focused on all the time, is TV. And I know it's not always possible. That's why we don't have a TV in the first place, is because when, as students, undergraduates, we never had a TV. Then we moved back east, and we were in a very old home. It was very small, and the only place to put the TV was over the mantle. And so we considered, we're like, should we get a TV or should we not? But the mantle, you come in and it's the whole focal point of the whole house is this mantle. So this fireplace. So if you put the TV above it, which would have been fun to drill into the brick anyways, then you come into the house and that's all you see is this big TV on the mantle. And we didn't want that. My husband was like, no, I don't want that to be the focus of our home. And I didn't want that either. And so then we just never got a TV. And guess what? I don't even miss it. We watch shows occasionally on our laptops, and that's about it. So that was another suggestion that he gave, even again, if it's not as big as getting rid of your TV, but just little things to simplify media and different things in your home so that your kids can focus more, and to give them time to have unstructured play, because that's so important. Like having sports and that kind of stuff is also a good thing if you're careful about it. But if that's all they're doing all the time, then they're never going to be able to use their imagination. Someone's always telling them what to do in structured type situations. And so giving them this unstructured playtime is more important than anything else that you could do for them. And one of the quotes I just wanted to share, and then we'll move on to the next book, because this is getting really long on this book already. It's kind of it's a soapbox subject for me, if you couldn't tell. But I have it on my computer right here, so that's why I'm looking over here. But he says, relationships are forged in pauses. And I just thought that was so beautiful and just succinct. It was just a beautiful quote. Relationships are forged in pauses. But if we don't allow ourselves to have pauses and those breaks in our day, then we're not able to have those strong relationships with the people that we're around and interact. Because it's in those moments of quiet that we form stronger relationships, that our kids might actually start talking to us because they've had a moment to process everything that's gone on throughout the day. If they're constantly going 100 miles an hour, they don't get a chance to process everything. And then they might not talk to us about it, or they'll seem kind of mean about it when we do ask how their day was, because they just haven't had a chance to really think about it. And so if we give them those moments and those pauses, it's so much better. So I just love that quote. I feel like it really sums up the purpose of this book. So I love this book. I'm gonna return to it several times just to get more and more ideas of how I can better simplify my life and my kids' lives. Okay, so the next book I wanted to mention is The Boys in the Boat. And I really love this book so much. I was watching a general conference. I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And twice a year we have this huge conference where a lot of leaders of the church speak. And Sister Eubank spoke, and she talked about this book. And after she talked about it, I was like, I gotta read that book. And so I got it. And I had it in one of my homeschool haul videos recently that telling you that I was gonna read it. And so I was excited to read this, and it did not disappoint me at all. It's kind of an interesting book the way it's written. I'm sure there's a specific genre. I don't know if you just say it's a documentary type style, because that's kind of how it is, but it's also sort of biography and sort of like memoir. I feel like all like combined into one thing. And it was just beautiful. The main storyline follows Joe Rance through his experience as a child and then to Berlin and being in the Olympics there and rowing. And during that whole time, it talks about other people he interacts with. It talks about his family situation as a child, which was very rough, just very difficult for him. And I read it and it just like breaks my heart, everything that he had to go through. And then it also talks about some of his other teammates that end up being on this rowing team that goes to the Berlin Olympics in 1936. And so it just kind of goes through all these different things. It talks about the different coaches. It talks about the Englishman who's moved to Seattle, Washington, and built all the boats that they use. And then it also talks about Germany a little bit. It talks about everything that's going on to get ready for the Olympics there, and for Germany to put on this major production, basically showing the world how great they are, how great Germany is. And so it just has several different storylines, especially at the beginning, as it's kind of trying to get you in and establish what's going on in the story. And then later on, it focuses more on Joe and follows his storyline a lot of the book until the end. And I just thought it was so beautiful. Honestly, I felt like I was there in 1936 watching the Olympic Games, watching this rowing team. It was that intense. The way that these races, they wrote about them in this book, made me feel like I was sitting there. Every single race they talk about, because there's several throughout the book as they're trying to, over years, get to the Olympics. Every single race, I'm like, about to have a panic attack, because it was just written so well. I felt like I was sitting in the boat with them. Or sitting in the audience right there. You know, it's like I'm watching the Olympics on my television that I don't have. But if I did have one, I'm watching the Olympics on TV and just so excited. And it was just amazing. I loved it so much, and it made me super anxious, but it was still so great. And I knew the outcome too. That was the funny part. Like, I knew what was gonna happen. I knew that they had to win these races because, spoiler, like, they won in 1936. They won the gold medal. This should be obvious from the book. That's not a real true spoiler about the book. And so it's like, I knew the whole outcome, but still the book just was so engaging that it just made me so excited for all the races. That was my favorite part, was reading about the races. I just thought it was just beautifully written and just so well done. I loved all the storylines of all the people. And again, just the heartbreaking stories of so many people, but they came back and they did amazing things. They worked hard and they were able to accomplish great things, which is why I think these type of books that are more like memoir style mean more to me than a self-help book, because I could be these people. You know, it's talking about normal people. They didn't grow up in any amazing circumstances at all. You know, it was just a normal person. These ones in worse circumstances than most of us today, at least in the United States. And they went on to do great things because they worked hard and they just had the right people in their life that helped them get there. And so I just thought that was beautiful. The last book I wanted to mention is Just Mercy, and this was our book club book for this month. Again, we don't actually meet in person or meet at all in any form, online or not, but we had a list already, so I've been working my way through the list. I don't know what I'm gonna do next year because we're still not probably gonna meet for who knows how long, but I have really enjoyed reading the book club book. So this one, Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson, I didn't know what to expect from it. I didn't know what it was about when I got it, but I really enjoyed it. I felt like enjoyed it feels kind of like a wrong word for this type of book, but I really did think it was eye-opening and it taught me a lot. So Bryan Stevenson writes this book in first person, and he is a Black lawyer and grew up, you know, having some difficult circumstances and wanted to go out and help people and change the world, and becomes a lawyer for those people, men and women, on death row. He opens this nonprofit organization or law firm kind of situation where that's what he does. And he goes and he's living in Montgomery, Alabama, and helping as many people as he can. And he goes through and gives several different stories throughout this whole book, but there's one main story that kind of follows the whole book. And it's about Walter McMillan. And so he was put on death row, but he was innocent. And so this whole time, the author, Bryan, is trying to help him. He's trying to figure out how to get him out of prison and from being on death row when he didn't do anything wrong. And so he helps a ton of people, those that are completely innocent, that didn't do anything wrong at all, but then also several that just grew up in horrible circumstances and just happened to make a mistake. You know, they didn't do anything super horrible at all. And so there's so many that were non-murder type cases, and they're all on death row. And some of them are young children, like 13 and 14-year-olds. And it just is, it's heartbreaking, you know, to read it. I wouldn't say this is a super, like, it's not graphic or anything in that sort of way, but it is a difficult topic. And so if you're sensitive to those things, just be aware it is a little bit difficult. But I loved his drive to help these people, that he saw something in them, he saw good, and he wanted to help them. And there was a quote in here I just wanted to share with you. It's very short, but he says that each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. And I just think that's so important to remember about everybody in general, is that no matter what we've done, we're better than that. I wouldn't say that this book is a Christian type book. At the very end, he brings a little bit of Christ into this story, but the title and the idea is very Christ-like. And so when I first read this title, Just Mercy, I thought about it in a different way than I do now. So like, I just went to the store, or I just need some milk, or I am just having a good day. That's not what this just is. Okay, this just is short for justice. So just mercy. So having that combination of justice and mercy, and how it's very important, which again is a very Christ-like concept, that it's important, like we have justice. We need to have justice. There is a right and there is a wrong. But then this mercy comes in, which is coming from Christ, and we're able to do better than we thought we could. He's gonna come meet us where we're at, and he's gonna raise us up. And that's what Bryan Stevenson saw in these people. He saw, you know, justice still needed to be served in some sort of way, But these people also needed mercy. You know, they knew they had done wrong things. They wanted to be better. Their lives didn't need to be ruined over the fact that they made a little mistake or a little bit bigger mistake. You know, but they just needed that little bit of mercy, someone to show them that they cared. And he would sit for hours and talk to people in prison, you know, and just have them share their stories, and he would share his. And I just thought it was amazing. Like, his love for all these people just comes through in this book. And so I really enjoyed reading this. I enjoyed just getting a different perspective on something I didn't know a whole lot about. He also intermingles a lot of history about law in here, and so a lot of different cases that came before the Supreme Court and things. So as he goes through and shares stories that he dealt with different people, he'll say, well, this is why this law is this way, and he'll give a little background. So I thought that was helpful. I am not the best with history or even law type stuff, so it wasn't the most interesting thing to me. Like, the intriguing part of the book was not that for me. But for people that are interested in that, or that study law and know a little bit more about it, I like how he gives the background to kind of explain why things are the way that they are. So I thought that was helpful. So I would recommend this book. I just felt like it was a good, different book, something that I probably wouldn't normally read, but gave me new insights and just a better perspective on the world and people in general. So those are the books I read in November. I'm excited to get started on my books in December, whatever month it is. It's almost the end of 2020. That's all I know, because that's all I keep hearing from everybody. But I'm excited to just read some more books this month. I enjoyed learning so many wonderful things from books this last month. So if you have some book suggestions for me, please link them down below. I would love to hear them from you. And give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.